There are moments in life when you pray, and it feels like the heavens are silent. You cry out, hoping for an answer, but nothing seems to change. You ask God to open even the smallest door, yet it stays firmly closed. You plead for a minor breakthrough, but it appears to be delayed. And in those moments, doubt begins to creep in. You start to wonder if God hears you at all. You question whether He sees your pain, your struggle, your waiting. But what if I told you that God is not ignoring you? What if I told you that His silence isn't rejection, but preparation? What if the very thing you're praying for is actually too small compared to what God is preparing to do? Stay with me, because today you are on the verge of seeing the hidden hand of God at work in your life in a way you never imagined. The truth is, we serve a God who never works according to our level of expectation. He is always operating above it. His plans are never average. His ways are never predictable. When you ask Him for something, He doesn't simply give you what you asked. He gives you more than you could have imagined. But the issue is, we often limit our expectations. We look at our needs through the lens of human limitation. We say, Lord, if you could just help me pay this one bill, I'll be okay. But God is saying, I don't want to just meet your need. I want to overflow your cup. We say, God, if we could just give me a little relief, I'll be satisfied. But God is saying, I don't want to give you a small breakthrough. I want to shift your entire life into a new dimension. God is not a God of barely enough. He is not a God of just enough. He is a God of more than enough. And when He moves in ways that leave you in awe. Look at Abraham. He prayed for one son, but God made him the father of many nations. Look at Solomon. He asked for wisdom, but God gave him wisdom, wealth, and honor like no king before or after. Look at Job. He lost everything, but God restored him with twice as much as he had before. You see, God doesn't just respond to your request. He surpasses it. But this is where many of us struggle. We pray, and when God doesn't answer the way we thought He would, we assume He's saying no. But what if the delay is not denial, but a sign that He's preparing something better? What if the silence is not abandonment, but a divine setup? Sometimes God withholds what you're asking for because He knows it's not big enough for what He wants to do in your life. Imagine a child asking for a small toy car, while the father is preparing to give him the keys to a real one. The child cries, thinking the father doesn't care, not realizing that something greater is on the way. That's how God works. When He speaks from eternity. When He plans with generations in mind. And when He moves in ways that don't just bless your today, but your future as well. That's why you must learn to trust Him when things don't make sense. That's why you must believe that even when the answer is delayed, He is still working. The Bible says in Ephesians 3:20, "Now to Him who is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us." Did you catch that? Not just above, but exceedingly and abundantly above. That means no matter what you're expecting, God is preparing to exceed it. But here's the challenge. Can you believe it? Can you trust that even when life seems unfair, God is still writing a greater story? Can you hold on to your faith even when the answer takes longer than you hoped? Because let me tell you, when God finally moves, it will make sense why the waiting had to happen. When the blessing arrives, you will understand why He made you wait. When the doors open, you'll realize that He was getting you ready for something beyond what you prayed for. God is not just a provider, He is a multiplier. He is not just a healer, He is a restorer. He is not just a deliverer, He is a lifter of destinies. He is not only concerned with your present, He's orchestrating your entire future. And when you surrender to His will, you'll see that what He has in store is beyond anything you could have imagined. So don't settle. Don't reduce your prayers to the size of your current circumstances. Don't allow your faith to be limited by what you see today, because what God is getting ready to do in your life will exceed your expectations in ways you never considered. When God begins to move, it may not make sense to those around you. People will look at your life and wonder how things changed so quickly. They will question how someone like you, who started with so little, is now walking in blessings that seem impossible. But what they don't realize is that God was preparing you in the hidden places. The season of waiting wasn't a delay, it was development. You were being shaped, you were being tested, you were being aligned for something bigger than what you originally requested. That's why some doors had to close, that's why certain relationships had to end. That's why the answer didn't come when you expected. Because what God has in store for you is greater than your initial prayer. Think about Joseph. He had a dream that he would one day be in a position of power, but he never could have foreseen the path that would take him there. He didn't pray to be sold into slavery. He didn't ask to be thrown into prison. He didn't desire betrayal. Yet each painful step was part of a divine plan. Every hardship was a necessary part of God's process to position him not just in a place of influence, but in a place to save an entire nation. Had God answered Joseph's likely prayer to be set free early from prison, he may have gone home, but he would have missed the throne. And that's what many of us don't understand. We pray for escape when God is preparing us for elevation. We ask for relief, but God is shaping us for rulership. That's why you must not be discouraged when things don't go as planned. That's why you cannot give up when your prayers seem unanswered. Because when God moves, He doesn't just give you what you wanted. He gives you what will fulfill His divine purpose in your life. And when it comes, the past pain will pale in comparison to the glory of the blessing. Think about Peter. He was just a fisherman when Jesus called him. His prayers were probably simple, maybe a better catch, maybe more success in business. But Jesus had a greater plan. He told Peter to cast his net one more time, and the catch was so great that the boat nearly sank. But that miracle was just a preview. Peter thought he had received the biggest blessing of his life. But Jesus wasn't calling him to be a more successful fisherman. He was calling him to be a fisher of men. What Peter saw as success, Jesus saw as a stepping stone. And that's how it is with us. We often celebrate the temporary, not realizing that God is working on something eternal. We ask for a short-term fix, and God is preparing a generational shift. We ask for a win today, and God is calling us to become a legacy. That's why the journey is sometimes longer. That's why the process is painful, because what God is doing in you is bigger than you imagine. Think about Hannah. She prayed for a child, just one. But God didn't just give her a son. He gave her Samuel, a prophet who would alter the direction of a nation. She wasn't just blessed. She became part of God's eternal plan. Or think about David. He was overlooked, even by his family. He was a shepherd in the background. If you had asked him, he might have said all he wanted was a little recognition, a place in the army maybe. But God saw a king. He wasn't planning to simply elevate David. He was planning to establish a throne through him. That's why you cannot lose faith right now. That's why you must keep pressing on, even when you don't see results. Because what's coming is greater than what you prayed for. God is aligning the right people. He is opening unseen doors. He is preparing opportunities that are far beyond your prayers. Some of the things you're asking for today are too small in comparison to what He has designed for your future. Some of the setbacks you're experiencing are not delays. They are divine redirections, so you don't settle for less. But here's the key. You must be ready to receive. Sometimes God isn't waiting to act. He's waiting for you to be positioned. He's waiting for your faith to rise. He's waiting for your mindset to expand. You can't ask for something big while living with a mindset of limitation. You can't pray for abundance and still walk with a heart of lack. You must prepare yourself for the increase that is coming. You must expand your faith, because when the moment arrives, you won't have time to hesitate. When the opportunity comes, you'll need to step in boldly, knowing that God has already gone before you. And let me tell you, when He begins to move, it will be suddenly. You'll go from waiting to walking in the promise in a moment. You'll go from being overlooked to being overfilled. You'll go from praying for just a small answer to living in a season of divine. You will accomplish in months what once took you years to battle through. The struggles that weighed heavily on your heart will suddenly break. The situations that seemed unchangeable will turn around in a moment. Because when God moves, He doesn't move slowly. He moves with power. He moves with acceleration. He moves in a way so evident, so miraculous, that no one can deny it was His hand at work. Think about the Israelites. They were in slavery for 400 years. Day after day they must have prayed for freedom. But when their breakthrough finally came, it wasn't just freedom, it was favor. They didn't just leave Egypt, they left with the riches of that land. That's how God works. He doesn't just bring you out, He brings you out better than before. He doesn't simply answer prayers, He goes far beyond them. So ask yourself today, what are you truly believing God for? What are you hoping He will do in your life? Let me challenge you, whatever that is, stretch your belief. If you're praying for a little provision, start believing for abundance. If you're hoping for a small opportunity, start believing for something greater than you could dream. If you're waiting for one door to open, trust that God is capable of creating a path where there wasn't one before. Because when He answers, it won't just be enough, it will be more than enough, overflowing, and when that moment comes, you will look back and realize every delay had purpose, every trial carried a lesson. Every moment of silence was preparing you for something far greater than what you originally asked for. God's ways are far above our ways. His thoughts are beyond anything we can comprehend. And when He begins to move, He moves in ways no one can predict. So don't limit Him with small prayers. Don't shrink your faith because of temporary trials, because what He's about to do in your life will become a testimony not just for now, but for generations to come. There are moments when you look around at your life and wonder why things still haven't changed. You've prayed, you've waited, you've trusted, and yet nothing seems different. It feels like you're going in circles, facing the same challenges, hitting the same walls. But what if I told you that this delay isn't denial? What if I told you that God hasn't ignored your cries, but is instead preparing something so enormous, so transformative, that if He gave it to you now, you wouldn't even be ready for it? There's a divine timing to God's blessings, and when the appointed time arrives, everything will change in an instant. God doesn't operate according to human deadlines. You may feel like time is slipping away, but God is never late. He's arranging things behind the scenes, setting up divine connections, organizing circumstances, opening hearts, placing everything exactly where it needs to be. And when it's all in place, nothing will be able to stop what He has planned for you. You may feel forgotten right now, but heaven has not forgotten you. The dreams God planted in your heart, the promises He whispered to your soul, the visions He showed you, He will bring them to fulfillment, and He will do it in a way that exceeds every expectation you ever had. Think about the Israelites at the Red Sea. They had just escaped slavery, only to be trapped nowhere to go, with the enemy behind them and the sea ahead. They couldn't see a way out. But what they didn't know was that God had already planned their escape. They thought they needed a bridge, but God had something more powerful in mind. He split the sea, and not only did they walk through it, they walked on dry ground. That's the kind of God we serve. He doesn't just open doors, He creates paths where none existed. Right now, you may feel like you're standing at your own Red Sea. You see no way forward. You feel hemmed in by your circumstances. But God is about to move in a way that brings not only breakthrough, but victory. You won't come out of this empty-handed. You won't come out of this broken. You will come out stronger, more equipped, more mature, and more blessed than before. The very thing that was meant to destroy you will be the platform God uses to elevate you. The enemy thought he had the final word, but he doesn't know that God has already written the last chapter of your story. When you pray, don't pray small prayers. Don't restrict God to your current vision. Believe that He is able and willing to do beyond what you ask. The Bible says in Isaiah 55:8-9, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." So that means whatever you're expecting, God has more. Whatever you're dreaming, God dreams bigger. His plans surpass human logic, and His blessings often arrive in ways no one saw coming. Look at Lazarus. His sisters sent word to Jesus asking Him to come quickly because Lazarus was very ill. But Jesus didn't rush. He waited. And in that waiting, Lazarus died. By the time Jesus arrived, everyone thought it was over. They said, "If only you had come earlier, he wouldn't have died." But Jesus knew something they didn't. He wasn't just planning a healing, He was planning a resurrection. If Jesus had arrived earlier, they would have seen a sick man recover. But because He waited, they witnessed the dead rise. You might be in a situation that feels too far gone. Maybe you think your time has passed. Maybe it seems like the opportunity is lost. But God isn't finished. He's about to do something greater than what you were expecting. What seemed like the end will become a new beginning. What felt like defeat will turn into a powerful testimony of restoration. What looked dead will be revived in a way that only God can accomplish. This is why you can't quit now. This is why you have to keep holding on, keep believing, keep trusting in what God promised. Because at the right time, in the perfect season, everything will come together. And when it does, there will be no doubt that it was the work of God. When it all unfolds, you'll understand why some doors had to shut, why certain people had to walk away, why some prayers were answered differently than you expected. Because what God had prepared for you was far greater than what you were asking for. Think about Ruth. She lost her husband. She lost her security. Her future looked uncertain. She could have stayed in Moab and lived in sorrow, but she chose a different path. She chose to follow Naomi, not realizing that this step of obedience would change her entire life. She thought she was seeking survival, but God was preparing her for redemption. She met Boaz. She was restored. She became part of the lineage that led to Jesus. One decision changed everything. That's why you cannot let your past define your future. That's why you cannot let your current season shrink your faith. Because you have no idea what God is orchestrating behind the scenes. You may feel like you're in a time of loss, but God is setting you up for a season of divine restoration. You may think you're just trying to make it, but God is positioning you for overflow. That simple act of obedience, that small step of faith, might be the key to the greatest breakthrough of your life. And when it happens, people around you will take notice. They'll ask, How did everything turn around so fast? How did you go from invisible to influential? How did you go from being pushed aside to walking in favor? And your answer will be clear. God did more than I asked. He didn't just hear me. He overwhelmed me with His goodness. So get ready. Lift your expectations. Raise your faith, because when God begins to move, it will be sudden. You'll step into doors you didn't even knock on. You'll receive blessings you didn't see coming. The years of waiting will be replaced with a flood of favor. The pain of the past will become a testimony of His mercy. The burdens that once weighed you down will become stepping stones toward your destiny. God isn't finished. He's still writing your story. The most beautiful chapters are still ahead of you. The best is yet to come. And what's coming is beyond anything you could have imagined. You're standing on the edge of something extraordinary. The weight of your history, the delays, the heartbreaks, none of it can stop what God has ordained for you. You may not be able to see it yet, but heaven is already in motion. Things are aligning, doors are being unlocked, divine connections are being arranged, and when it all comes together, it won't just be an answer to your prayer, it will be a fulfillment of His purpose. The mistake many make is giving up too soon. They look at what hasn't happened yet and assume it never will. But God isn't bound by our timelines. He's never early, but He's never late. And when He moves, you'll understand why it took time, why the waiting mattered, why the heartbreaks had to happen. Because what He's about to do won't just change your situation, it will elevate your destiny. And when it happens, the only thing you'll be able to say is, "This is more than I ever asked for." It won't happen at all, but that's not how God operates. God works in the invisible before He reveals in the visible. You may feel like nothing is shifting, but in the spiritual realm, everything is moving. Your obedience, your endurance, your faith, none of it has been in vain. Every tear you shed, every quiet prayer you've whispered, every moment you chose to trust God when nothing made sense, it was all part of the preparation. And when the moment is right, the floodgates of heaven will open in a way no man can block. Look at Joseph. He was given a dream as a teenager, a glimpse of greatness, a vision of divine purpose. But instead of walking straight into his calling, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, wrongfully accused and imprisoned. His journey looked like the exact opposite of what God had spoken. But what Joseph didn't see was that every setback was actually a setup. Every painful moment was another step forward, and when the time was fulfilled, he went from the prison to the palace in a moment. The years of hardship couldn't compare to the magnitude of the blessing waiting for him. That's what happens when God intervenes. He doesn't just bring restoration, He brings elevation. He doesn't just answer, He overflows. What seemed like a delay was actually development. What felt like rejection was really redirection. And when the right door finally opens, you'll understand that every closed door was part of a greater plan, because what God has for you is far beyond what you could have planned or arranged on your own. There are things you've prayed for, believed for, waited for, and maybe even questioned if God heard you. But let me remind you, God has not turned a deaf ear to you. The silence isn't absence. The waiting isn't punishment. It's preparation. God is moving behind the scenes, and when He steps in, it will happen suddenly. One day you'll wake up and realize everything has changed. The opportunities will appear, the breakthroughs will manifest, the favor will surround you in such a way that you'll be left in awe. This is why you cannot settle. Don't adjust your expectations to fit your current situation. If you pray small, you receive small. But if you dare to believe for greater, If you truly trust that God is not only capable, but ready to do exceedingly, abundantly above all you could ask or imagine, then you'll enter a realm of blessings that surpass all logic and reasoning. God is not limited by your past. He's not restricted by your present. He's not daunted by the obstacles in your path. He is the God who speaks to dead places and breathes life. He is the God who declares things that don't yet exist as if they already do. He turns graves into gardens, sorrow into joy, mourning into dancing. When you examine your life, you may see shattered dreams, broken parts, unanswered questions, but God sees a masterpiece being woven together. He sees the big picture. He knows how every thread, every piece, every tear fits perfectly into His plan. And what He has planned for you isn't just about you, it's about His kingdom. It's about His glory. It's about His purpose being revealed through your life. When He blesses you, it won't be just for your benefit. It will be a testament to everyone around you. People will look at you and see the goodness of God on display. They'll see what it looks like to trust, to wait, to walk by faith when everything seemed uncertain. David was just a young shepherd when God chose him to be king. His own family didn't see it. He was overlooked, dismissed, but God had already appointed him. And even though it took years before he sat on the throne, when the moment came, nothing could prevent it. He didn't have to strive for it. He didn't have to manipulate situations. The throne came to him because it was already written in heaven. That's what happens when God decides to lift you up. No one can block what He's ordained. No opposition can stand against what He has already declared over your life. You must take this truth deep into your spirit. God isn't just answering your requests. He's fulfilling divine promises. He's not merely opening opportunities. He's establishing destiny. He's not just blessing you. He's making you a walking demonstration of His faithfulness. And when He moves, it will be undeniable that it was Him. Maybe you're feeling weary. Maybe you're questioning if anything will ever shift. Maybe you've started thinking this is just how life will always be. But the enemy wants you to settle. God is calling you to expect more. The enemy whispers, "This is it. Your best is behind you." But God is declaring, "Your greatest days are still ahead." The enemy says, "You might as well stop trying." But God says, "Hold on. I'm about to do something bigger than you've ever imagined." When the Israelites were wandering in the wilderness, God gave them manna, just enough to make it through the day. But when they entered the promised land, the manna ceased. Why? Because God was transitioning them from survival to abundance. He was leading them into a place overflowing with provision. They didn't have to survive anymore. They were called to thrive. That's what happens when you enter your next season. The things that once sustained you will no longer be necessary. God will bring you to a level where overflow becomes your new normal. You've been faithful during the waiting. You've stood strong through the tests. You've walked through the fire. And now God is preparing to release something in your life that will leave no room for doubt. The chains that once held you back will break. The doors that were once sealed will swing wide open. And you will stand in awe, knowing that what God has done is greater than anything you could have asked for. So don't minimize your prayers. Don't reduce your vision. Don't accept less when God is crafting more. Keep seeking, keep believing, keep expecting, because in just one moment, everything can change. Years of endurance can be exchanged for rivers of favor. Prayers that seemed forgotten can be answered in ways that exceed your dreams. The God who parted seas, who raised the dead, who lifted Joseph to power, who placed David on the throne, that same God is working in your life. What's coming is not just an answer, it's a fulfillment of purpose. It's more than a response, it's a demonstration of divine love. There's a moment approaching when every delay, every tear, every night of wondering why will make sense. Right now, it might feel like nothing's moving, like your prayers are floating unanswered in the silence. But God is not unaware. He's not distant. He's not ignoring you. What seems delayed is being crafted. The timing is divine. The details are being aligned. The pieces are falling into place. And when it finally arrives, it will not just satisfy your need. It will exceed your hope. Consider Hannah. She cried for years for a child. She begged God. She endured the pain of delay. What she didn't see was that God wasn't just forming a child, he was preparing a prophet. Samuel was no ordinary son. He was a voice to a generation, a man chosen to anoint kings and shift the course of history. If Hannah had received a child earlier, she might have missed the child with destiny. But because she waited, God gave her more than a son. He gave her a world changer. This is what happens when you yield to God's timing. He doesn't give you what's convenient. He gives you what fulfills purpose. You might feel like nothing in your life is producing, like all your efforts are barren, but barrenness is not the conclusion. In Scripture, every woman who faced barrenness, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Hannah, Elizabeth, gave birth to greatness. What God is forming through your life is not small. The process has been long and the path has been hard because the outcome is massive. The promise is weighty. The future is divine. The enemy wants to convince you that silence means God isn't listening, that delay equals denial. But faith declares, even when I don't see the result, I trust that God is working. Faith says, even when it feels impossible, I believe in miracles. Faith says, even when I've waited for years, I know my moment is coming. The enemy fights hardest when you're closest to breakthrough. He sends distractions. He fuels discouragement. He whispers lies to make you quit. But that's when you have to hold on tighter. That's when you need to stand firmer and declare what God has promised will come to pass. The enemy can't cancel what God has purposed. No person can prevent what God has already written. No situation can block a blessing that has heaven's seal on it. When Jesus arrived at Lazarus' tomb, everyone thought it was too late. They said, if only you had come sooner, he wouldn't have died. But Jesus had something greater in mind. They were expecting healing. Jesus was planning resurrection. They had faith that Jesus could heal, but they didn't yet understand that he could resurrect. Their faith had limits. They believed in a God who could heal sickness, but not in a God who could raise the dead. But Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? And with one command, Lazarus walked out of the tomb. There may be parts of your life right now that seem too far gone. Certain dreams look buried. Some doors feel permanently closed. But God is not just the God of fresh starts. He is the God of resurrection. He can bring back to life what appeared to be over. He can restore what was taken. He can breathe new life into what the world called finished. And when he does, there will be no doubt it was his hand, his power, his divine favor. Now is not the time to give up. Now is not the moment to settle for less. If you could see what lies just beyond this battle, you'd understand why the enemy is pushing so hard. If you could catch a glimpse of what God has prepared, quitting would never be an option. If you could feel the breakthrough that is right in front of you, you'd keep pressing with everything you have. The struggle is a sign that something is near. The resistance is evidence that you're close. The delay is confirmation that what's being prepared is greater than you imagined. God has been working on you in this season, refining your character, stretching your faith, deepening your trust, and removing what doesn't align with His divine purpose. What you've lost, the people who left, the things that didn't work out, they were all part of the shaping. Because what's coming can't be built on a weak foundation. The blessing ahead requires strength, maturity, and wisdom. And that's what God has been producing in you all along. Think of Noah. He had to build the ark before there was a single drop of rain. He had to obey before he saw evidence. He had to follow God's instructions when the world mocked him. And when the flood came, the very ones who doubted him were the ones left outside, while Noah and his family were safe. Why? Because obedience positioned him for protection and provision. This is why obedience matters. This is why you must trust even when nothing makes sense. Because when the time comes, your faithfulness will have positioned you to be at the right place, at the right time, for the right release. Don't lose your confidence in the middle of the journey. Don't let the waiting erode your trust. Don't let the quiet moments convince you that God has forgotten. He is still writing your story. He is still shifting pieces into place. He is still guiding you toward the promise. And when the moment comes, it will happen suddenly. One day everything will look the same, and the next it will all change. The opportunity will present itself, the provision will be released, the breakthrough will arrive, and it will be more than you ever imagined. There is absolutely no limit to what God can do. There is no situation too complex, no request too large, no obstacle too strong. The only limit is what you choose to believe. If you expect little, you will receive little. But if you dare to believe for greater, you'll step into overflow. God doesn't want you to just survive. He desires for you to walk in favor, abundance, and supernatural increase. But it starts with belief. It starts with unwavering faith. Keep praying, keep standing, keep trusting, because in one divine moment, the impossible becomes possible. In a single instant, everything can be transformed. The enemy thought he had won when Jesus hung on the cross. He believed the story had ended when the stone was rolled in front of the tomb. But 3 days later, what seemed like a defeat was revealed as the ultimate victory. What appeared to be the end was actually the beginning of everything. And that is exactly what God is about to do in your life. What looks like a closed chapter will become the start of something brand new. What seems like loss will become a powerful testimony. What felt like endless waiting will be revealed as divine timing. Don't let temporary circumstances cause you to forget eternal promises. Don't let what you see with your natural eyes make you doubt what God has spoken to your heart. If He said it, He will complete it. If He promised it, He will fulfill it. His word never returns empty. His plans always come to pass. His power is limitless. And what He's preparing to do in your life will be above and beyond all you've asked or imagined. Your part is to keep the faith. Your role is to hold on tightly. Your responsibility is to prepare your heart for the overflow that is coming. Because when it arrives, it won't just meet your need, it will exceed your wildest expectations. When the door opens, it won't just be any door. It will be one ordained by God. When the breakthrough shows up, it won't just be a win. It will be a turning point that glorifies the name of Jesus. Keep looking with eyes of faith. Keep expecting the unexpected. Keep walking forward with confidence. Because when God moves, it won't just be enough. It will be abundance. It won't just bring peace. It will bring purpose. It won't just fulfill a hope. It will release a testimony that will shake others. Everything you've waited for, everything you've prayed for, everything you've been trusting for is held in the hands of a faithful God who does exceedingly abundantly more. He has heard every whispered request. He's seen every quiet tear. He has noticed every time you chose faith over fear. The delay was not to deny you. The silence was not to forget you. It was preparation. It was alignment. It was heaven getting ready to release something extraordinary. And the time is near. Soon you will see it. Soon it will all make sense. The process will be proven purposeful. The struggle will be seen as strength training. The heartbreak will reveal a higher calling. And when it happens, you will know without question, it was God, His timing, His power, His plan. So hold on. Keep your spirit anchored. Keep your eyes fixed on the promises, because when the moment comes, it won't be average. It will be more. More grace, more strength, more restoration, more than you imagined. And when it happens, your story will declare to everyone watching, God did this.